Welcome to episode number 2 of our Sharing Circle. While the shock of the discovery of the bodies of over 1,000 Indigenous children at the sites of former residential schools has awakened Canadians to the dark side of this nation's history, former Truth and Reconciliation Commission Chair Murray Sinclair said the pathway to reconciliation will be a much harder journey than the confirmation of the truth. In a December 2021 interview with the Windsor Star, Sinclair stated, "We all have a responsibility to do something about this. We have a responsibility to be anti-racist, to confront racism when we see it and do something about it." In 2017, Sinclair stated, "Reconciliation is about atonement. It's about making amends. It's about apology. It's about recognizing responsibility. It's about accounting for what has gone on. But ultimately, it's about commitment to maintaining that mutual respectful relationship throughout, recognizing that even when you establish it, there will be challenges to it. What's important is to understand when the government makes a commitment like they have done to the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, or to establishing a nation-to-nation relationship, understanding what that means and what that means to government policy and what it means to your company and to government actions is very key. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, the TRC, released its calls to action to report and to rectify the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. As a result, the TRC released its calls to action report with 94 recommendations or calls to action, target at specific audiences. Today, I wanted to focus on the call to action number 92, which focuses on business reconciliation. It states, "We call upon the corporate sector in Canada to adopt the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as a reconciliation framework and to apply its principles, norms, and standards to corporate policy and core operational activities involving Indigenous peoples and their lands and resources." This would include but not be limited to the following. Number 1, commit to meaningful consultation, building respectful relationships, and obtaining the free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous peoples before proceeding with economic development projects. Number 2, ensure that Aboriginal peoples have equitable access to jobs, training and education, opportunities in the corporate sector, and that Aboriginal communities gain long-term sustainable benefits from economic development projects. Number 3, provide education for management and staff on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history of legacy of residential schools, United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, treaties and Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal Crown relationships. This will require skills-based training in intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. Today, the Indigenous economy contributes an estimated $31 billion to Canada's gross domestic product. At its current rate of growth, it has the potential to reach $100 billion in the next 5 years. Strong relationships between Indigenous communities and the broader business community contribute to a stronger and more equitable Canadian economy. They lift people out of poverty, creating hope and opportunities for current and future generations. Opportunities that cannot be realized when communities rely only on government as their sole source of revenue. Only by embracing economic development can communities achieve greater independence and self-sufficiency. For their part, progressive companies are learning that when they meaningfully engage with Indigenous communities and facilitate the growth of Indigenous businesses, everyone wins. Procuring goods and services from Indigenous businesses helps to ensure more competitive markets, creates valuable new training opportunities, and improves social and economic outcomes for the wider community. It also builds trust and enhances opportunities for knowledge sharing. I truly believe Indigenous engagement through transformative leadership will lead to improved Indigenous expertise, improved environmental, cultural, and economical outcomes. Transformative leadership can be viewed as the actions led by business leaders of an organization that reinforce organizational focus on Indigenous engagement. Commitment by the entire organization, beginning with the executive leadership, is required for this to be successful. Transformative leadership has a significant impact in achieving and sustaining results for effective Indigenous engagement. Management must cascade information and reinforce positive Indigenous engagement actions across all levels of the organization in a consistent manner. Commitment to Indigenous engagement is driven through policy, assessment practices, key improvement priorities, and the workings of the Indigenous engagement committees will lead implementation and continuous improvement. I truly believe this is a path to economic reconciliation.